All right, hi everybody. This is Daniel Lyons, and this is soulblindministry.com. Today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Matthew Chapter 13. I haven't had done a broadcast in a couple weeks. Unfortunately, we've been moving. As you notice, the scenery is a little different behind me. Been very busy. Haven't had much chance to take care of as much things as I'd like, but we're at least can do a little bit more broadcasting today. We'll go ahead and revisit the Genesis chapters later on, but right now I just figured it might be fun to kind of do Bible study kind of along the lines of how I do it. And then what we're going to do today is we're looking at the Book of Secrets method for looking at Matthew chapter 13. This is where I started at. I personally started with chapter 13. I started noticing that there was something in the Bible that was happening. There was basically there was a theme that was happening. There was no full explanation for it. When Jesus is telling his disciples these parables, and he says that, you are able to see these things, but others can't. Basically, he's telling them that there is a language that's happening that you should automatically know. You should know what these parables are saying. And if you don't know what they're saying, then possibly you're missing the point. And so this particular language we need to take a look at. It uses symbols and living allegories. Now, again, this is a book written by God to you through the stories. It's like you are a child, that you must become as a child to understand. To become as a child, you'll understand that there are simple basic truths that are hidden in the stories. The child hears the stories, but the man can decipher the stories in between. And so basically we're going to go ahead and take a look at this method and see how this particular chapter works out. Now, some of you have been following along and get the basics for it, and I'll try to give a quick summary for some of the words you may not understand, but please just bear with me. If you don't understand them, you can watch some more other videos, or I will have some of these things more revealed as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and take my face off of here so you don't have to stare at me for too long. Vanity is not one of my bigger suits. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my favorite tool, which is the Blue Letter Bible, blueletterbible.org. It is not affiliated with this ministry in any way, shape, or form, but it is one of my favorite all-time. No, that is not what I was trying to show you. That is me broadcasting and looking quite like I have a giant nose in the middle of my forehead. I mean, in the middle of my face with a giant pyramid triangle. Where to go? Blue Letter Bible. It says Blue Letter Bible. Where did it start this one? Try it again. Start screen. All right, Blue Letter Bible. Now, this has no affiliation with Soul Blind Ministry, but it does have is a great research tool. There are lots of great research tools, but this is my all-time favorite because it pretty much has everything in it all together at one time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at the first chapter here, Matthew first verse, chapter 13. Now, if you turn on the top here, there's an option that says Strong's. If you turn on that Strong's option, it'll bring up all these little hyperlinks at the bottom. These are the actual original words that in Hebrew and Greek, and being that we're in the New Testament, these will all be Greek links. That's why they have the little G before them, standing for Greek. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom this up a little bit because I'm sure probably the text is a little small for anybody trying to see it otherwise. Hopefully this is big enough for you to see. Maybe I can zoom in just yet a little bit more. Zoom to 200. All right. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Bible and the different method. All right. Now it starts off in verse 1 here. It says, "The same day went Jesus out of the house and sat by the seaside." Now, remember, the house is the soul. Remember, this is all really about you. This whole book is telling you a story about the world that has happened before, but now it's God used these people and their lives to tell you a lesson about your truth that needs to be built up. This is a process, and this is well into the process because we're already into the New Testament. We're not in the Old Testament anymore. In this process, we are now learning how to mirror God. And so this is far, far into it, so you should be well understanding of the enlightened path. And so at this particular point, the house is your soul. It's made of many truths. The bricks build together to make many truths. These same bricks are stones. The stones are people, because it's all a microcosm of a macrocosm. Basically, you are the world. All the things of the world are attributes of yourself. All these same attributes will be reflected from the world to a kingdom, from a kingdom to a house, from a house to the people within the house. And so you start seeing that these same references will be mirrored back and forth, and you'll start seeing this whole world diminishing. Again, the whole world is all the kingdoms of the world. The kingdoms themselves have the people of the world ruled by a king. These represent states of being. You get down smaller, gets to a house. The house represents the individual beliefs as they've been built up, and that's when you get things like the house divided and so forth. Or even the term of why do you try to remove the speck of dust from someone else's eye when your own eye is still your own perceptions are being built. The house is still under construction. So you'll see that this is what the particular house is about. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, go back to the sharing, Matthew Blue Letter Bible. All right, so the same day, now day means a period of time. So this particular day is a stage. At this stage, Jesus at this point represents truth. His name means salvation, meaning freedom. Now he refers to himself as being the truth many, many times. And this whole process has been about building up the truth. So in this stage, truth went out of the house, out of your soul to understand, and thus it went to the sea to reflect. The sea is the firmament, the mirror of truth. And in this mirror of truth, we reflect, right? Now, generally, the sea in the Old Testament refers to as being bitter, not bitter, but I mean to roar. So it means that there is no reflection in chaos. But at this point now we're starting to get to a point where we're trying to calm the seas as Christ calms the seas, and within such we see the reflection of God. So Christ becomes thus a bridge, right? And a great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into the ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. Now, multitudes, these are all people. Each one of these they're attributes of people, of yourself. Okay, so consider this for a second. I'm going to go ahead and you are the world. Okay, so if you are the world, that the people are the beliefs within you, and those that are becoming followers of Christ, these are the truth that are gathering enlightenment. Your understanding is gathering enlightenment. It's like the Tower of Babel. The Babel is that the world was you, and that all the languages were unified, so all the beliefs were as one. But yet you thought you could accomplish anything, and therefore the voices were shattered, and therefore you could not understand, because you realized that truth has shattered the false beliefs that you had. And so therefore the world, it's like speaking in tongues, that when people say that each, in the book of Acts, it talks about each voice being understood as their own, it means that it is a unified voice. All is being understood, and these things have become harmonious. So this great multitude of truths are coming together, and he went into the ship. Now again, the waters are the second day of creation. In the waters you have this middle ground, the higher self and the basic self. And so in yourself you have this balancing point in between. All right, and so now a boat in classical, most Eastern religions, boat represents a spiritual journey. And so you are upon a spiritual journey. And so if you are in the boat, you are upon a balance, or at this point, Christ is representing a bridge of the higher and lower self, heaven, earth. The id and superego are balanced in the ego. And so the spirit is representing the ego. It is the reflection of truth. And within the reflection of truth, you are able to learn. And so it's reflecting within the self, playing the part of wisdom. Wisdom is self-relating, relying upon the self, or not relying on the self, but relating to the self. So this great multitude of truths are coming together, or beliefs are unifying to learn. And the ultimate truth, the pursuit of understanding, is Christ himself, who is in this balance of the ship, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. So basically, they are not of the spirit, they are beliefs that need to gain enlightenment. And so this is the unifying of these beliefs. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. Now, understand that the world is you, and a level ground, a level attribute of yourself would, let's go ahead and I'm going to share my desktop. Might be easier to share things this way. Let's see, full screen maybe. All right, let's do this. And you can see this is my whole screen going on, and it's going to kind of reflect a lot, but we'll go ahead and look at this here. All right, now imagine you have, all right, we're going to go ahead and do a little drawing for us here. All right, so imagine this is a flat plane, all right? This is the world. Yeah, it'd be technically be a big square, but it kind of puts some perspective to it, all right? Now, in the flat plane, there is no mountains and there are no valleys, okay? This is balance. This is the center of your being. Within this particular stage, you find your where truth grows from. In this valley, you can have, you know, the wheat of the field that grows, and the many rows that it grows in the same plane of understanding. You can have the gems that are mined. These are the truths that come from a level state of being. You can have the metals that turn out to make swords, and this brings forth the truth. Often it's a two-edged sword, and so this it is a single truth that cuts both ways. All things come from a level plane of understanding. It's kind of like a scale, and in the scale that you find balance. It's when things are level, neither high nor low, that you create understanding. And so of this field, we're growing understanding, and therefore this time we are dealing with the wheat itself. And the wheat is growing from the fields of the soul. When you gain that which you eat of the soul, it then becomes understanding. So we're gaining truth and thus harvested into the barn of the soul, okay? So I'm gonna go back over to the Blue Letter Bible, all right? And so, so he's talking about the parable of the sower. Now, the sower is pretty much your need to gain understanding, all right? And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. All right. Now consider that. You have again the waters above, the waters below. Now in the waters above you have birds. In the waters below you have fish. Now I will make you fishers of men, Christ says. And Paul had scales upon his eyes. Scales meaning that he was blind as a fish. That which was in the lower self, in the spirit of ignorance, not understanding, raised from the depths into the light as birds. As you see, the angels have wings. They are elevated truths. The word angel means messenger or message. Elevated truth. So the birds represent an elevated truth versus that which is ignorance of the deep beneath. Okay, so we are bringing up elevation of truth, and the birds are removing these seeds. Now, you have to understand that it works as dichotomy. That is, all that grows is progression. But if you stop growing at any point, you die. Stagnation creates death. So the opposite of life is death. The opposite of growth and progression is to do nothing. Okay, so it's about change. It's always a progressive amount of change. And so in your attempt to grow, you are planting seeds. And these seeds can represent trees, they can represent grasses, they can represent herbs, and each one of these things are different attributes of yourself. And so at this particular point, we're learning how to grow our understanding, thus the fields of the soul, the fields of the mind or the heart, either way you want to say it, because in the heart I'm growing understanding between the Father and the child, the mind and the body, the superego, the id, the higher self, and the lower self. And so we are growing understanding in the fields of the soul. But the birds' enlightenment is removing these truths, okay? So let's go back, and so the fowls came and devoured them. So higher truth has removed these. Let's go ahead and share the screen again. Makes it a little easier. Full screen, and there I go, zooming away. All right. So All right, so the fowls came and devoured them. Some fell upon the stony places where they had not much earth. And so basically, consider the earth as being you again, and that this is your primitive self. But it is stony. This means that these stones often represent your foundations or your solid beliefs, okay? So they fell upon places that are not deep. So there is no root within them that they may grow. Now, comes down, you see, there's a verse that talks about, and I can't remember, I think it's Corinthians, and it talks about that from the terrestrial comes the celestial, from the corruptible, the incorruptible. This is talking about your, it's imagine, again, you have that plane, that flat plane we saw in the drawing there. And basically, if you have a flat plane, then from that, you're going to grow your understanding. And let's see, hold on. And from these foundations, you bring forth from the corruptible, from all the things you know, from the faulty beliefs, you still learned enough things, but these things become like a filth to the mind. And until you've learned to focus these things that you've learned, to reorganize them, you cannot grow a tree of life. You cannot grow true understanding. You cannot grow Christ within, which represents truth, the pursuit of truth, the growth of truth, the tree of life. So from the corruptible comes the incorruptible. From the earth comes heaven. So basically, we are growing the truth within ourselves. All right, so let's go back and look at that verse again, and also remember to share. There we go. All right, so here we are. So because there is no, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. So basically, these are just beliefs that can pop up quick and easy because there's no root for them to depend on, all right? And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Now, if you consider that the sun is enlightenment, it is the great source of enlightenment that gives guidance to the world. But the sun itself represents testing as well. So enlightenment tests the soul, tests the planes of the earth. It tests everything. It's tested against the sun. But this testing has scorched up those beliefs because they were not fully formed, right? And because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among the thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. Now, thorns at this particular point are something that's a little closer to understand as being sin. There's verses in the Bible that talks about them being as the sons of sin. Basically, this is they're hard to handle. They pierce the hand. Anyhow. So we have, in fact, the same as a thorn that was in the side of Paul. Paul, he was Saul at one point. Saul means desire. So he was a great desire. He was great in his kingdom. But he became thus small, which was what Paul means. So it means he became humble. So from great desire to humble means. But he had a thorn in his side. So he had basically, it's a reminder of the sin, which is his pride, and he even says that his pride would become the better of him, basically. So so the thorns represent that which pierces us and changes the way we were. It's a stranglehold on your growth process, and that's where it talks about later here that. Let's go back, share screen, and so. So, and some fell upon the thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. So basically, your higher belief is then, or your growth of understanding has been choked away by your faulty beliefs, the thorns. All right. But others fell into the ground, the good ground, and brought forth fruit. Some in 100, some in 60-fold, and some in 30-fold. Now, the numbers are a little more complicated. I'm not an expert at numbers. I'm sure there are some people that believe they're experts at them, but there's certain days of creation that follow the basic numbers. They're kind of primitives. Here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at 10, the number 10, 10 represents wholeness of self. You see these same 10 represented as the 10 virgins. There's 5 that are wise and 5 that are foolish. Those 5 that have the light, these are wisdom, that are enlightened, and then the foolish ones to the right versus the left. And so you are not to go in extremes, but you are to at least stay balanced. And so, and therefore keeping an eye for balance. But anyhow, 10 is wholeness. 10 represents unity, or not particularly unity, but it's wholeness of self. In fact, it was almost every religion uses 10 as wholeness. It's even in Hebrew, but it's Egyptians and Romans and everything else. That number represents to be whole. But 6. Now, if you look at the numbers of creation, you have on the 3rd day, and or even in the original Hebrew, the number 3 came from meaning to gather. It was a little image of a foot, and so it meant to gather. And so, there's, when you gain understanding, you're either going to gain 100, which meaning like fully understanding, or you're going to gain 6. 6 represents like the 6th day, basically meaning like friendship or gaining at least a good, fair kinship to this. So you're going to gain full understanding, a kinship to the understanding, or you're going to gain very little understanding. You're just going to gather what you can. And so that's what it's talking about here in this particular case. So let's go back and share the screen and full screen. All right, so that is not it. This is it. Okay. And so some 100-fold, some 60-fold, and some 30-fold. So basically, it's bringing back about certain attributes of it. Now, again, I'm not an expert at the numbers, but this is from the studies I've gotten. This is what these things very clearly seem to mean. But I'm always open to correction. All right. And so we got now Matthew 13:9. He who has an ear, let him hear. Right? And so he's telling you that if you're not understanding, you're hearing these stories all the time, but you're not gaining the truth that is behind them. And so Matthew 13:10 says, and the disciples came and said unto him, why speaketh thou unto them in parables? Now remember I told you that this is, that the child will hear the stories. And this is where most Christianity is stuck at, that most of us are stuck in the point of hearing only the stories and gaining the rules from them. And unfortunately, when we do that, we also play the part of the Pharisees. The Pharisees basically mean lawyers. They're also law enforcers, but it's mostly lawyers. And so when you play the role of rules lawyering, you become married to this truth that there is nothing more than the rules and the stories, and then we become very diminished and we make God greater. But God is trying to teach us to be friends of His, thus taking us from being children, heirs to the kingdom. The heir eventually becomes a king. So we're becoming fellow kings or fellow lords of the inner world as a friend of His in understanding truth. We won't become God Himself. We are becoming the Lord of our inner world, thus mirroring God of the world and the universe outside. And so let's go ahead and look back at this screen. And all right, so so he answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Now I've heard many people say, oh, there is no secrets to the Bible, everything is laid out. This word is used so many times in so many places about the mysteries, even in Proverbs talking about the dark sayings of the wise, meaning enigmas, the mysteries. Or even consider Philip sees an Ethiopian eunuch who's riding in a wagon, and he goes, oh, do you understand what it is you're reading? He says, how can I, unless there's someone to guide me? So basically, this is a language that we are not understanding. There are mysteries everywhere, and the reason you're not seeing it is because you're only seeing the stories, but not the truth beneath it. And to know the truth beneath it, you have to know how these pieces fit together, and you have to know what the names mean. So most of the truth is hidden in the words themselves. All right. So it's given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Now, we've learned before that if all things, excuse me, are about many people, people being beliefs. And remember, it's a macro universe and a micro understanding. So you're going to see these reflections are going to happen, diminishing and maximizing multiple times. So you'll sometimes see it being the soul, sometimes you'll see it as the world, sometimes you see it as a kingdom. Well, the particular version of kingdom represents your state of being. This is the state of being that I'm in, right? And so if you take heaven, heaven means sky. So we have a state of the sky, state of enlightenment. These are the mysteries of the state of enlightenment. But to them, that is not given. So those that are on the outside cannot see the inner light within. Those who are in the outer darkness cannot see the inner light, the inner illumination of truth. Okay, so for whosoever hath to him shall be given, and he who hath have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. Basically, what this is saying is that you have a great understanding within you. But unfortunately, many times, if you do not use that understanding properly, it has to be removed. This is about renewal of self. So sometimes you have to give away what you have so that you may gain new understanding. So therefore, speak I to them in parables, because they seeing not, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Consider that for a moment, that your eyes, basically, we represent the image of God, and if we don't reflect God properly, we miss some of the greater attributes of Christianity and our pursuits for knowledge. We say that we're built in God's image, and so, but to understand what God's image means, it's not just the understanding. We're being made to be followers of Christ. The word follow means, it's like mimes or mimas. It means basically an imitator, a reflection of. Even Corinthians tells us that we are a direct reflection of God himself. Christ even calls us gods. So we are to learn, what verse is that? It says, ye be gods. Anyhow, so we are learning to be like an heir to a king, as an apprentice to a master, that someday the apprentice shall be as the master, not to surpass the master, but to be as a friend or equal, as a peer. And so we are elevating our truth. But if you do not have the right reflection of the master, you cannot know as the master. So all things are symbolic, like say eyes. Eyes represent your perceptions. If I do not see, I do not perceive. It cannot means I am blind to the truth. I am ignorant to the truth. Remember, this is all about light versus dark. Light means to illuminate. That means knowledge. Logos is also light. So we are trying to illuminate our mind. But if we do not illuminate our minds, if we are not growing in the light of truth, we are dying in the stagnation of control and fear. And so we need to grow versus nothing, being nothing, trying to stay as we are, trying to cling to our own beliefs, trying to stay locked into what a lot of us call cognitive dissonance. Means that when you hear the new things, you're afraid to accept them, so you basically divert them to being, oh, well, what I'm hearing, this sounds like Kabbalah, this sounds like Seventh-day Adventist, this sounds like whatever. A lot of times the things I'm saying, you'll try to change them, redirect them, so that you won't have to face the truth of what you're hearing. By accepting things you already know, it makes it easier for you to just walk away. Instead of eating, you won't, as being hungry for the truth, you're full of your own food, and therefore you're not hungry for it. And so it's easier to just say, oh, well, I've already ate before, I've already got a full understanding prior. And so you don't gain the understanding. But in this time, your perceptions are blind. You are as Paul, as being scales on your eyes. You are blind as a fish. You do not see the light. You do not come up to the light. There's an old expression, you're blind as a bunch of fish. And so if you are blind, you are ignorant, and you do not see the truth. Though you see stories, that's all you see. You see stories and rules, but you do not perceive the truth that is within all things. Within hearing, you do not hear the truth. You do not understand. It means that you have a block to your understanding, and it is stopped you. In fact, this is the same reason why Christ, who is also the truth, goes through and he's the great physician and he's healing the blind to give them perception. In fact, there's one person that he heals him and he says, what do you see? He says, I see men like trees walking. If you see men like trees walking, it means that their growth is upon its journey to understanding. But so he opened his spiritual eye first, but not his true eyes, and then after his true eyes were open. And so we're at this particular point where we need to have our spiritual eyes open so that we may see clearly. We must have our ears open so that we may hear the truth. This is the truth that is hidden within all things. On this particular point, it is the world of the Bible, the world of the past that God used his chosen people he chose because of their language, because of their names, because of all these things. He orchestrated it perfectly to create this wonderful manual as a letter of love for all of us to understand. And so he is now sharing with us this truth, for we are, hopefully, that we are at a time that we are ready to understand these things. Okay, so we're going to go back over to Matthew chapter 13, 14, and it says, and in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which saith, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and shall not perceive. In other words, you're not getting it. You're not seeing the truth because all you're getting is the stories from the Old Testament. All right, for this people's hearts is wax gross, and their ears are dull of hearing. So basically, consider gross is not actually meaning to be gross. It literally means thick. And so their ears have grown dull, their hearts are gone thick. It means that you cannot be pierced. To pierce something means to create a path for it to be open so that it may gain more understanding, but this one cannot be pierced. It's grown thick, and their ears have grown dull. In other words, there is no keenness of their understanding, and their eyes have closed. In other words, they have become blinded to the truth because of the riches that they have filled themselves with. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and come back to my screen once more. In fact, consider being a rich man versus a poor man. A rich man basically means that you have many riches, many truths within yourself. But if I am a poor man, I am hungry and eager to gain profit, to gain riches, to gain truth, right? So it's like having a cup that's too full. If the cup is too full, you try filling it, it cannot fill because it overflows and makes a mess of everything. So everything coming in, everything going out becomes diluted and destroyed, because a rich man is full of himself. He's blinded by his own riches and cannot see the truth. But true riches are what fulfill us. And so the poor man hungers for understanding. He hungers for bread. The word bread in the Old Testament means teachings, good news, and truth. So we are hungry for the truth. That's why Christ's body is bread. I give you understanding. Moses gave us manna, which means questions. Christ gives us bread, which means answers. And so we are now gaining answers and consuming of the truth. And in fact, consider bread again as being, we're growing wheat of the field, or maybe the heart. And so it's springing up in this plain of the heart, and it's being gathered together to create our understanding. We then gain the understanding in the mind, and the soul is being harvested. The world is being harvested of truth. Okay, so the poor man is hungry. The rich man is full of himself. If you are full of yourself, you're not gaining this. You're not getting this. Everything. You're blind to the truth and only seeing the stories is what's physical there. Because we see with mortal eyes that of the dead, we do not see the living truth that is before us. Let's go back to. Oh, actually, here's one before I go back over there. I think it's kind of funny. Rich man, eye of the needle. It's one of the things that came across this weekend. I was thinking about that. So, rich man, full of yourself. The word camel is gamel, which means riches. And so a camel, riches, cannot fit through the eye of a needle. You cannot sew together a thread of truth because you're so full of yourself. You must diminish yourself that you may become as a thread and stitch together a garment of righteousness, a garment of truth. You cannot become righteous if you are full of yourself. So a rich man is like a camel that cannot fit through the eye of a needle. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to inherit the kingdom of heaven. In other words, a rich man cannot become enlightened because he cannot stitch together a thread of truth. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back over to our Blue Letter Bible. And I'm trying to screen share, but the thing on the side keeps popping in and out on me. All right, start screen. All right, let's go back to the Blue Letter Bible. And at least any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears and should understand with their hearts and should be converted, and I should heal them. Remember, we are opening the eyes, removing blindness, removing ignorance, because we are blinded to the truth, but now they're being healed and they are being able to walk. So you're on your balance in your journey, and that you have understanding, that your hearts are now not blocked or not dull, but keen of hearing. So these thus being healed. But blessed are your eyes, in other words, your perception, blessed are your perceptions, for they see, and your ears, for they understand, they hear. Okay, so verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see these things ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear these things which you hear, and have not heard them. We do not see them, we do not hear them, because we are ignorant, because we are filled with our own self-control. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which he has sown in the heart. See, fields are being planted within the heart. All right, so it's sown in the heart and grows into elevation to the higher self. This becomes harvested into your understanding. Is what this is going on. So anyone who heareth the word is truth. Anyone who hears the truth of the state of enlightenment and understandeth it not, then comes the wicked one. This is opposition. Opposition is the wicked one, your own opposition, and you. This is that cognitive dissonance, that transposition, where you transfer things from yourself to something else, some way of deferring the truth to something else, and catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he who received the seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed in the stony places, again the foundation, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. So basically, I hear awesome good stuff, and I have now taken it to heart. Yet yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended. So basically, that the truths were planted within yourself, the seeds were planted, but yet you did not. There was no depth to them, so they were on faulty foundations, and therefore they were burned by the light of the sun. Therefore, through testing, they were tribulation and removed. He also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world. In other words, the world is the id, not just the world outside you. It is your primitive self that it's talking about. So this particular word is cosmos. Cosmos means the order of things, and so the old order of things. And the deceitfulness of riches, your own riches, your own beliefs, choke the word and becometh unfruitful. So in other words, the truth has become choked by your own faulty beliefs of your riches. And so, but he that receives seed into the ground, the good ground, is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit, and bring forth some 160 and some 30. So basically, you'll get a full understanding, you'll get at least a kinship to some of it, or you'll just gather what you can. All right. Another parable he put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven, so the state of enlightenment, is likened unto a belief which sowed good seed in his field. So this man is grown in the field, the plains of the world. The world is you, your soul, or the cosmos, that is the order of things. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. Now, sowed again means to plant. If I'm trying to plant these beliefs, I'm trying to have them bear fruit. But these things have not borne fruit yet, because the enemy has come. The enemy is opposition, and so the enemy has come and planted tares. Now, tares are also a type of they look like a wheat, but they're poisonous, and so these are faulty beliefs that have been planted within you among the wheat, and they went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So in your attempt to gain understanding, you learn many things, but amongst them are what are truth and what are false. And so you're trying to gain the balance between what is right and what is wrong. And so you'll find that you have faulty beliefs and you have good beliefs that grow together. And so you are trying to gain balance between these things, but not until they grow up can you see what they are and distinguish what is right and what is from wrong. And so that's what this is about, is gaining that understanding that's growing within you. And so let's go ahead and go back and share full screen and go back to this. All right. And so appear in the tares also. So in growing of your understanding, you see what is right and what is wrong. So the servant of the household came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? So basically, you tried to do good things, you planted good things within your soul, but yet there's still false truths that are growing up amongst you, and you're trying to figure out what it is. He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. He's not telling you who the enemy is, because the enemy is yourself. Now, some people can say that it's the devil himself. Which I'm not sure. I think he says it here in a moment. The enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? Now, until understanding is fully formed, you cannot gather up these truths. They have to be fully formed before they are recognized for what they are. But he said, Nay, least while you gather up the tares, you root up also wheat with them. So you're gathering up your understanding, but if you gather up and think that some things are tares, you know, there's all these truths are connected. And so in destroying of some, you will destroy that which is true understanding. It's like saying, you know, how can you walk a mile? How can you understand something unless you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes? The same kind of truth is there, that how can you gain the understanding of one without the other? So let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now again, the barn is basically it's the harvesting of the truth within you, that it may become part of your soul. The soul means mind, and so we are gathering these beliefs to the soul. So we're gathering this understanding. But those that are faulty will be burned, and basically remember that the light of the truth will either refine something and make it grow, or it'll burn it and destroy it. It becomes as though it is nothingness, and therefore it goes into the outer darkness, that which is not inner light. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. So again, we are taking this field of the soul that is being planted by a belief, and at this time it's about a mustard seed. All right, and we can take a look at that mustard seed if you like. That particular mustard seed represents mustard. It comes from the root words to hurt or to sting. So it's a small thing that we are planting, but it's sometimes a painful truth that must grow. All right, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it grows, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. So basically, the higher self may be found within the which comes from the bitterness that we have experienced, and it may be a small thing, a small humble truth that has been planted within you, which will grow into a greatness that your higher understanding can dwell within. Another parable spoke he unto them, The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. So basically, the meal is the wheat itself. We're gathering together our truth, and it becomes a loaf. It becomes a bread, becomes an understanding. All right. So he spake of the higher enlightenment is like leaven. Leaven is basically it is the yeast that creates the bread to rise falsely. So these are false truths that have been put into your understanding, and that understanding will sometimes destroy everything. A little falsity will destroy all your righteousness. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them. So basically, he's telling you truths within truths, and until you understand how it is written, and you do not understand them yourself, you will always be ignorant and blind. That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Again, the world is your cosmos, the world is your understanding. This is your basic self that is being reborn. And so from the start of things, you did not understand, but now you are starting to understand them. So he's revealing the secrets that you have had since the beginning. The truth was within you, but you did not recognize it. As it says in the book of John, that the truth was in the world, or the light was in the world, and the world did not recognize it. So the truth is within you. It's always been within you. You just do not recognize it until it's been placed into a proper order. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. So basically, of that which is your dedication, your students, your disciples, of you, that these things are well known, not known to all things, but only unto that which is true. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. Now remember, the word son is a Hebrew word that means to build. If you have a house, the house is ruled by three attributes. You have the mind, the spirit, and the body. And so in the mind, you have the Father. In the heart, you have the Mother. And in the body, you have the Son. So you are the world are people. People also represent stones. These stones build upon each other. The Son builds, and so you're building your understanding up to the higher self. And so at this particular point, Christ is talking about that he is the Son of Man, so built of your primitive beliefs unto higher truths, versus built of higher truths down to man. So basically, he's talking about I'm raising you up to a higher self versus a higher understanding descending to you. So he's raising up these beliefs. So he is a truth that has become a lineage of truth that is being built up. Okay, so let's go back to sharing the screen and look at the verse again. Okay, so the field is the world. Oh, sorry. And so he answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. So built of basic understanding. And the field is the world. So this is your world, your understanding. So in your level self is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. Remember, child means to build the kingdom, which is a state of understanding or a state of enlightenment. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. So in other words, this is foolishness and wickedness that is tried to drive you away. It's built of these particular things. All right. So we are. So the enemy that sowed them is the devil. All right. Now, if you look at the word for devil, it's generally diablos. Means to slander or to accuse. It's an accusation. So basically, it is yourself, your opposition of your higher self that is in opposing your righteousness. And so basically, it's like, who are you to think that you are righteous? Who are you to think you come before God? You're constantly accusing yourself that how can I overcome such things? In fact, we'll consider Jesus walking on the water. So when Jesus is walking on the water, he's representing your truth in balance, and that it's the pursuit of truth. And so you're on a mission, or as a boat, bridging the spirits of higher and lower self. Now, Peter means comes from the word Simon, which means stone, but also it roots from the word meaning to hear and obey. And so obedience and understanding is trying to walk on the water, to try to bridge and balance out the spirit. And Christ says, "Come, Peter, walk on the water. Become as me, become as a prophet, become as a truth that balances the spirit." And so he says that the winds were boisterous. In other words, he thinks that his higher self is too much, too proud, too boastful to think that he can be the balance of the two, that obedience alone can create balance. And so he doubts and becomes as the fish and sinks back into the lower waters and loses the higher self. And so he becomes blind like the fish there for a moment. Christ says, why did you doubt? Do not doubt that you are able to bridge the spirit of the lower and higher self. Do not be in doubt that you have the ability to find balance within yourself. Though this is a little different than what you normally hear that story as, but there's quite a bit going on in here. So let's go back, and we have, so the enemy sowed them as a devil, and so this is representing your accusational nature that does not allow you to harvest that which is true. The harvest is the end of the world. Now, a lot of us have a problem with this one here because we think it's about the end times being the destruction of the world itself. But this is not about the destruction of the world outside of you. This is technically about the world inside you. And so we are trying to create what's most cultures will call it like a state of nirvana. It's not about dying per se. This is about finding peace within. We are taking all the nations of our soul, all the kingdoms of our soul, and we are conquering one at a time until we get to the point that we have mastered the entire world, and therefore we become the reflection of God. We become a unified world, a single language, a single tongue. And so at this particular time, at the end of the age, at the end of this time period, at the end of all the development that we've been gathering, that we will be, we'll create the new Jerusalem, the new peace that descends as the bride between the Father and the Son, between the heavens and the earth, into a new peace that descends upon us. And so he's telling us at the end of the age, at the end of this development cycle, that that this harvesting will become, the understanding will be gathered. All right, so let's go back over to full screen. All right, oops. So I don't turn on caps lock while I do it. All right, and the reapers are the angels. Now remember, angels mean messenger. Angelos means to be their messenger or a message itself. And so that which is gathered is the higher understanding. Remember, we had the birds of the field that took them away. Well, this time the birds of the field are harvesting the truth. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned into the fire, so will be the end of this world. So basically, faulty beliefs will be gathered, and through the testing of fire, they will be removed. And it shall be at the end of all the old world, for the new world is coming. So the old earth will pass away, but the new world is coming. This basically means the old understanding is gone, that the new understanding may come. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. So that which is built of the basic understanding shall send forth his angels, or message, and they shall gather. Remember, we're talking about gathering the truth out of his kingdom. So out of enlightenment, we're gathering those that are to higher understanding, these things that offend, all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. So basically, he's gathering all the truths that are righteous and unrighteous are becoming part of your understanding. There is those that will become part of the inner light, those that become part of the outer darkness. So basically, it's a sorting process that one cannot exist without another, that they require a symbiotic relationship between two truths, that there which even the things that you believe that are not enlightened truth still add to create your truth within you. And shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now consider that if you are not at peace, you are wailing. That's the exact opposite of peace. In the world, peace means wholeness. But if you are not serene, if you're not at wholeness with self, then you are wailing. If you are gnashing at teeth, you are hungry for the truth and did not get satisfied with what you learned. So if you're cast into the outer fire, it means a testing that has no resolution, where you are at unrest and there is a constant hunger for understanding. So then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So remember, we are, he who has an ear, let him hear. So if we remember again, the kingdom of the Father is the mind, the higher understanding is being elevated to a higher truth. Your basic self is being gathered up, and therefore you shall shine with inner light. Even the Bible talks about those being cast in the outer darkness. It even says that the New Jerusalem has no sun. I mean, it has no sun, no moon. Darkness is cast away. Everything is inner light. Everything outside is outer darkness. So all things shine forth as the sun, as in the illumination of pure understanding. Okay, so we're almost done here. Let's go back to sharing full screen, and we go to He who hath an ear, let him hear. So understand what he's trying to tell you, that you need to gather your understandings from everywhere, not just from one place, but from everywhere. So let your tares and your wheat grow together and distinguish them later on. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasures hidden in a field, the which when a man hath found, he hiddeth for joy thereof, goeth and selleth all that he hath and buyeth that field. Now remember, where is the field? The field is that in my heart. It is the full understanding that has come together. And so if I find treasures in a field, if I've found something that is uncovered, I've uncovered a truth, that I will keep that truth. And I will, from that truth that I know there are more riches, I will buy that field. In other words, I will accept. But if I sell something, it means I'm giving it away. It could either mean to teach or to get rid of. But I still gain the profit of what I have sold. So when the Bible is telling you to buy, it means that it comes at a price, but you've gained it. And once you've gained it, you should also sell these things as well, because you are teaching them to others, or you're giving them away, but you still gain the benefit of it. All right. And so the particular verse, so you found this field, so that of the heart, that you will gain the riches thereof and keep finding more riches. Therefore you will sell all of what you had before, get rid of what you used to have. You have enough understanding, you'll gain from that understanding yet more. All right, Matthew 13:45. And come back here. And so, all right, 45. And the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchantman seeking goodly pearls. The word pearls means wisdom. Wisdom is always a pearl, all right? And so you have a merchantman, someone who buys and sells, somebody who gains knowledge and teaches it as well. So seeking goodly pearls. So the higher understanding, the state of enlightenment, is like unto a merchant seeking goodly pearls, seeking good wisdom. When he found one pearl of a great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. So basically, if I have found a really great understanding, that I'm going to get rid of all my old understanding so that I can accept this new truth. If I keep my old truths, then I have nothing. I'd rather have this one great pearl of a great price. In fact, most of the time, a lot of ancient cultures used to use it as the pearl is the wisdom of the soul, that sometimes you have to search within the heart, the sea, within yourself, that you must seek long underneath the beyond the shallows, into the depths of yourself, to draw up a great truth. And sometimes it takes a lifetime to draw up a great truth. But this merchant has learned of a great truth, and so he will sell all that he has, get rid of all the falsities that he has, to gain greater understanding. All right, so he's gaining wisdom by selling away what he used to have so that he may gain more. All right, so we're going to go back to full screen here, back to the Blue Letter Bible. And again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. Gathered of every kind. So basically, again, the waters are the soul itself, that we're going into the spirit, and that we are drawing up from what is not understood, to making it enlightened, how making fishers of men, drawing up the potential from that which is planted within you. Which when it was full, they drew to the shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So basically, they're gathering which is good into the soul, because remember, the soul represents the same as the vessel, which is kind of like the body of truth within you. So it shall be at the end of the world, at the end of this time period, the angels, enlightenment, shall come forth and sever the wicked from amongst the just. Now, this isn't necessarily about good people and bad people. This is about your righteous truths versus your false truths, your wicked truths that lead you astray, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. So the testing of your beliefs has become a perpetual fire. Therefore shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Basically, that these truths can never be enlightened because they are false truths, and so therefore they are always in a state of loss. And so there will be an unrest and hunger that cannot be satisfied. So these are falsities that cannot be satisfied. Jesus said unto them, have ye understood all these things? They say unto him, Yea, Lord. Then said he unto them, therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is in a household, which brings forth out his treasures, things new and old. Remember, your house is your soul. So of your house, you're going to bring out that what you knew before, what is old and what is new, that of your old understandings and of your new understandings, you're bringing forth the truth of the riches that you have gathered. Those that would have blinded you before are now gathered to the truth, and these things create understanding and unity. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these parables, he departed thence. And when he came unto his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astonished and said, whence has this man this wisdom and these mighty works? And he's saying, where did he get these mighty works? And basically, he's telling you that when you went back and to visit your old understandings, you see that it is not recognized as being truth. If you go back to the way you were, then you are as visiting the past. It creates doubt within yourself. So it is not, is this not the carpenter's son? Is not this his mother Mary, mother called Mary, and his brother called James, and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And so you're trying to recognize these truths within you. But the biggest part is what's in the names. Now, first of all, Jesus is a carpenter, but the word does not just mean carpenter. It actually means like a builder, an architect. It's all the things that about joining and building truth together. And so his job is as the same as his father, that I must be about my father's work. In other words, I must, back then a student was the same as his master, and a son the same business of his father. So I must be about building the truth. And so is this not the builder son, or the carpenter's son, is not his mother called Mary? Now, women represent wisdom, and Mary's name means rebellion. Rebellion. Okay. Ta-da! Rebellion. The rebellion. It's a Hebrew word just meaning rebellion. Now, rebellion means to change. So, was this not the wisdom of change? And his brother named James. James means to same as Joseph, which means like to expand or increase. So, see, sorry, James is the same as Jacob, the same as Jacob, the supplanter. Supplanter means to hold back. In other words, also change. Is this not also the change, the wisdom of change? Is this not also the enlightenment or the belief of change? And Joseph is the same as James. James means to increase or to expand. So in other words, growth. And Simon means to obey and to hear. And Judas means basically praise, but it comes from casting forth or progression. So is this not the builder, the builder of truth? Is this not the wisdom of change? Is this not the enlightenment that that has changed and brought growth, obedience, and progression? And his sisters, were they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things? Were not these wisdoms with us prior? Who is then this new belief that has come forth? How is this any different than what we already knew? And they were offended in him, but Jesus said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. Now remember, the house is the soul, country is a state of enlightenment or a state of being. And so a prophet is meaning basically to bring forth understanding, but you cannot bring forth understanding in your old state of being. You are without honor in trying to bring forth new truths to your old. When you're trying to revisit your old self, you cannot recognize the truth that has come from it. And he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief. So within yourself, you have decided that if you're going to revisit yourself, the old self, if you've gone back to who you were, then you can no longer see the truth of progression. So a prophet in his own home or his own country, in that old state of being, he cannot. In fact, the word that was used for country there, in fact, came from like to counterfeit or falseness. So I cannot go back into my old false self and bring forth new enlightenment. It is not recognized, and so no mighty things can be done. Anyhow, that's the end of chapter 13 of Matthew. It is quite a lot that I've laid on you, but hopefully you can understand it. If you do not fully understand it, you can either contact me or check out some of our other videos that we have. And once again, thank you for watching, and God bless.